In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you all the fun ways you can use auto pivot. So what exactly is auto pivot? Auto pivot is a function on your machine that allows you to lift your foot up but keep your needle in the down position. So let's say I'm sewing along, I get to the edge of my seam, and then I stop sewing. My needle is going to stay in the down position, my foot's going to lift up, and that will allow me to rotate my fabric or reposition my hands without losing my spot. Now, when am I actually going to use auto pivot? I love to use auto pivot when I'm chain piecing, like this. And the reason I like to use auto pivot for chain piecing is that when I'm sewing along, when I get to the edge of each little block that I'm sewing, it's going to lift my foot up and I can just butt up that next piece of fabric right up next to it, and I don't have to worry about wasting a lot of extra thread or getting caught up because it's going to be able to be placed right next to the seam that I'd sewn right before that. I also love to use auto pivot for applique. Because it lifts my foot up and I can just reposition it and I can just turn it ever so slightly, I don't have to worry about lifting my foot up from the back or using my knee lift. It's just going to be 100% automatic, and it's very, very simple, and it keeps your hands where you need them to be, which is on your project. I also love using it on quilting. I love straight line quilting and I love geometric shapes, and auto pivot's going to be fantastic for that. So as you can see here, I've sewn along, and when I got to the point where I wanted to pivot, I stopped sewing. My machine lifted my foot up and I was able to just pivot my fabric and then start sewing along. And the same thing here. I lifted my foot up and just pivot and sewed along here. And that is going to be a lot easier and a lot more accurate and faster than if I was using my knee lift or manually lifting, going around and lifting my foot up. I also love using it for curved piecing, like over here. Because with curved piecing, you're going to have some wrinkles on the top of your fabric, and instead of having to readjust those more often with a traditional knee lift or lifting the foot up in the back, it's going to automatically lift up for me, so I just have to smooth the fabric to the back. So it's very, very simple. Now that we know some of the many uses of auto pivot, let's go over the machine and I'm going to show you how to quilt with auto pivot. Depending on what machine you're using is going to determine where your auto pivot button is. I'm sewing on the 9450, and on the 9450 it is the very top left-hand button. It's a dark blue and it looks like a foot with a needle in the down position. When I touch it once, it's going to turn yellow, and when it's yellow, that means it's activated. So now that it's yellow, let's go ahead and start sewing. Now that I've stopped, all I have to do is rotate my fabric and then rotate it as many different ways as I'd like to get some really cool geometric quilting shapes. Just as another example, if I wanted to applique something, I can use a zigzag or any other decorative stitch to applique something down using the auto pivot. So now all I have to do is place my fabric down and just start sewing. As you can see, by just lifting my foot up and rotating it, it allows me to sew more accurately and faster. Now that I've shown you my favorite way of quilting with auto pivot, comment below with your favorite way of using auto pivot, whether it's curved piecing, applique, or chain piecing. Thank you so much for watching, and you guys have a great day.